Hi everyone. You've wandered into a place where the rain doesn't wash away fear, it amplifies it. Tonight, I'll share 5 horrors that even the darkness hesitates to whisper. But first, turn off the lights. Let the sound of rain become your only tether to reality. This isn't just a video, it's a pact. You listen, and the stories listen back. They always do. Before we begin, where are you right now? Type it below. The city, the country, the time. We're watching too. Now, story 1.
5 horrors buried in the rain. Forgotten tapes the government tried to silence. The rain hammered against Kara's apartment window like 1,000 skeletal fingers tapping against the glass. She hadn't slept properly in days. Not since the nightmares began. Visions of a shadow with jagged, bone-white teeth gnawed at the edges of her sanity, its whispers slithering into her ears like smoke. But tonight, the storm felt different. Heavier. As if the sky itself were pressing down, suffocating the world beneath its weight. Lightning flickered, casting jagged shadows across her cramped living room, and for a heartbeat she swore one of those shadows moved. A deafening thud at her door shattered the silence. Her breath hitched. She froze, her fingers digging into the armrest of the couch. The clock on the wall ticked louder, each second a hammer strike. Slowly she crept to the door, her socked feet silent on the cold floor. Pressing her eye to the peephole, she saw nothing but the flickering hallway light and the distorted reflection of rain streaking the window at the far end. The storm howled like a wounded animal. She hesitated, then eased the door open. A gust of wet wind slapped her face. On the threshold sat a waterlogged cardboard box, its corners bloated and soft. No return address, no postage. Just 3 words, slashed across the top in rust-red ink, "For your eyes." Inside she found a vintage cassette tape, its label cracked and peeling at the edges. The words, "Experiment Thugger 9, do not play," were handwritten in faded black ink. A black and white photograph of a crumbling asylum, its windows boarded like hollow eyes. On the back, scrawled in the same jagged script, Black Ridge Asylum, October 1983. A note, the paper yellowed and brittle. The message was brief. The truth will change you. Are you ready? The handwriting matched the symbols she'd seen in her nightmares, the ones that appeared on her bedroom walls after midnight, only to vanish by dawn. This is how horror movies start, Liam had said when she showed him the box, but his laughter rang hollow, his eyes darting to the storm outside. They'd been dating for 6 months, and she'd never seen him look afraid until now. "Burn it," he urged, "or call the police." But Kara was a journalist. Curiosity was her currency. 2 hours later, her tires crunched over gravel as Black Ridge Asylum loomed ahead, its broken spires clawing at the bruised sky. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the air reeked of wet decay, rotting wood, rusted metal, and something sharper, chemical, like ammonia and burnt hair. She killed the engine. The silence was worse than the storm. Her flashlight beam trembled as she stepped out. The asylum's iron gates hung open, one hinge snapped, the other squealing in the wind. Graffiti coated the stone walls. "It watches through the rain, and don't trust the doctors." She slipped inside. Water dripped from the collapsed ceiling, pooling on cracked tiles littered with shattered glass and syringes. The floor groaned under her weight. To her left, a hallway stretched into darkness, doors hanging ajar like slack jaws. To her right, A staircase spiraled upward, its banister splintered and slick with moss. Then, a creak. She spun, heart slamming against her ribs. Nothing. Just shadows. But as she crept deeper, the cold bit through her jacket. Her breath fogged the air. She passed a rusted gurney, its straps frayed and stained. A clipboard lay nearby, its pages disintegrating. The words, "Subject number 9, were barely legible. Behind a collapsed wall, she found a hidden room. A desk sat. In the center, its surface buried under dust and files stamped "Classified." The first folder was thick, its edges charred. Patient number 9. Name, redacted. Diagnosis, delusions of a shadow with white teeth. Self-mutilation, claims of feeding. Rituals during rainstorms. Treatment, serum V47, clarity. Administered October 12, 1983. Results, terminal. Beside the files lay a tape recorder, its buttons stiff with age. Against every screaming instinct, Kara slid the cassette in. The voice that crackled through the speaker was ice-cold, clinical, a doctor's detached monotone. Log date, October 12, 1983. Patient number 9 received serum V47 at 0900 hours. Initial observations: elevated heart rate, pupil dilation. Subject reports auditory hallucinations, whispers in the walls. 100 hours. Subject becomes agitated, claims to see entities the staff cannot perceive. Describes a shadow with teeth that feeds on the rain. 500 hours. Incident. Subject retrieved a spoon from the cafeteria. Staff intervened too late. Subject gouged out his eyes, screaming, "It's inside me!" Autopsy revealed. A scream erupted. Not the patient's, but the doctor's. The tape dissolved into static, then a wet, gurgling whisper. "You're next." The voice was hers. Kara recoiled, knocking the recorder to the floor. The flashlight died. Darkness swallowed the room. Drip, drip, drip. Not rain. Something closer. She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking too badly to unlock it. The drip grew louder. Closer. Then, a breath. Warm. Rank. Inches from her ear. She fled, slipping on wet tiles, her screams drowned by the storm. The asylums. Corridors twisted around her, walls closing in. A door slammed somewhere above. Glass shattered. She skidded into her car, slamming the locks. Her phone buzzed. A text from Liam. "Where are you? Someone's been in our apartment." The message cut off. She called him. The line picked up instantly. No hello. Just ragged breathing and a low, wet growl. The same sound from the tape. Then, a voice that wasn't Liam's. "Come back to room 309. We're almost ready for you." The rain had become a living thing. A relentless, hissing beast that clawed at Kara's windshield as she sped back to Blackridge. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Liam's face flashed in her mind, his easy smile, the way he'd roll his eyes at her conspiracy theories. Now he was gone. Because of her. The asylum loomed ahead, its silhouette bleeding into the storm. This time, the iron gate stood wide open, creaking in the wind like a taunt. She parked, her phone trembling in her hand. The last text still burned on the screen. "Come back to room 309, or we're almost ready for you." She stepped out. The rain soaked through her clothes instantly, cold and heavy. Her flashlight flickered, not again, but steadied as she aimed, it at the asylum's gaping entrance. Inside, the air smelled fouler. Rotting meat. Chemicals. Something alive. The hallway to room 309 felt shorter. Too short. As if the building had shifted. The door hung ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. She pushed it open. The room was a tomb. Dust swirled in her flashlight. A metal desk sat in the center, piled with mold-stained folders. A single cassette tape lay on top, labeled in jagged red letters. Final experiment, patient number 10. But it was the walls that froze her blood, covered in symbols. The same ones from her nightmares, carved into the plaster, deep and frantic. Some were smeared with a substance too dark to be rust. She slid the tape into her recorder. The doctor's voice crackled, but this time it wavered, afraid. Log date, October 31st, 1983. Serum V47 has been compromised. Patient number 9's corpse, it's gone. The security footage shows static, movement in the walls. The staff are hearing voices, my own reflection, a choked sob. It smiled at me. It's using the rain to... A wet crunch cut him off. Then a new voice, a rasping, guttural growl. You opened the door. Now we feast. The recorder exploded in a burst of sparks. Something moved in the corner. Kara spun. Her flashlight caught a sliver of bone-white teeth in the darkness. A shadow, tall and emaciated, peeled itself off the wall. Its limbs twisted like broken branches, joints bending the wrong way. Liam, she whispered. The thing tilted its head. A laugh bubbled from its throat, a sound like drowning. She ran. The asylum corridors twisted, doors slamming shut around her. The shadow kept pace, its footsteps squelching against the floor. She stumbled into a stairwell, descending into pitch blackness. The basement. Her light bounced off rows of rusted cages. Empty. Except one. Liam lay inside, his wrists raw from struggling against the chains. His eyes met hers, wide, pleading. A gag of blackened cloth choked his screams. I'm here, she cried, fumbling with the lock. A cold hand closed around her ankle. The shadow loomed above, its face a shifting void except for those teeth, glinting, hungry. It spoke, its voice, a chorus of whispers. You shouldn't have played the tapes. She kicked free, scrambling back as the thing lunged. Her hand closed around a rusted pipe. Swung. The metal passed through the shadow like smoke. It laughed again, dissolving into the darkness. Upstairs, the storm raged louder. Kara dragged Liam through the asylum, his weight slowing her down. The shadow flickered at the edges of her vision, herding them toward room 309. Inside, the symbols on the walls now glowed faintly. The thing materialized before the desk, its form solidifying. Rainwater seeped through the ceiling, pooling around its feet. It raised a clawed hand, pointing at the second tape. Play. It! Liam shook his head wildly, but Kara's hands moved on their own. The recorder whirred, her own voice spilled out. Log. Date. November 1st, 1983. Patient number 10. Successful integration. The entity sustains itself through the host. Rain acts as a conduit. Recommend immediate termination of... The Kara on the tape screamed. The shadow surged forward, teeth sinking, into Liam's shoulder. He didn't make a sound. Just stared at her as his skin turned gray, veins blackening like ink spilled under glass. You're the key, the shadow hissed, releasing him. Liam collapsed, twitching. The serum opened your mind. Now we cross over. Through you. Kara, back toward the door. The shadow didn't follow. It simply smiled. Outside, the rain stopped. In the sudden silence, her phone buzzed. A video notification, security footage from her apartment. The screen showed her own face, pale and hollow-eyed, standing in the living room, smiling, whispering, almost ready. Behind her, the shadow stretched across the wall. The rain had become a ghost. It followed Kara everywhere, a constant icy whisper against her skin, even indoors. The hospital room reeked of antiseptic and dread. Nurses tiptoed around her, their eyes darting to the blackened veins, spidering up her arms. Hypothermia, they insisted. But Kara knew better. The shadow had left its mark. At night, she'd lie rigid, staring at the ceiling. The IV drips plink, plink, plink morphed into footsteps, slow, deliberate. Circling her bed, she'd squeeze her eyes shut, but the darkness behind her lids pulsed with shapes, jagged teeth, two long fingers, and Liam's face, frozen in his final scream. On the fifth night, the dreams began. She stood in room 309, rain sluicing through, cracks in the ceiling. Liam knelt before her, chains cutting into his wrists, his head snapped up, eyes milky white, lips peeled back in a grin too wide for his face. "You shouldn't have left me," he hissed, voice layered with a guttural growl. The shadow coiled around him like smoke, its bone-white teeth clicking. "But you'll fix it. You'll play the final tape." Kara woke choking, her throat raw. Moonlight bled through the blinds, casting barred shadows across the floor. On the bedside table, a cassette tape glistened, slick with rainwater. The asylum's gates were wrapped in police tape now, the words "crime scene" glaring in yellow. Kara parked a mile down the road, the tape a lead weight in her pocket. The storm had returned, angrier, wind screaming through the pines like a chorus of the damned. She slipped through a shattered basement window, glass crunching under her boots. The air hung thick, sweet rot and burnt hair. Her flashlight flickered, carving shaky circles in the dark. The walls breathed, expanding and contracting like lungs. Room 309 waited, the door ajar. Inside, the symbols glowed faintly, their sickly green light reflecting in puddles of black ooze. The desk held a tape recorder, pristine despite decades of decay. She slid the final tape in. Her own voice filled the room, calm and clinical. Log date, November 2nd, 1983. Entity assimilation successful. Host shows no signs of resistance. Serum V47 has allowed full integration. The rain sustains the connection. Final phase. A crash echoed from the hallway. Liam stood in the doorway, his body a marionette of wrong angles. His jaw unhinged, voice a wet rasp. "You left me behind." Behind him, shadows peeled from the walls, dozens of them, teeth glinting, limbs contorted. Kara ran. The asylum corridor stretched and twisted, walls bleeding black sludge. The floor undulated, tiles peeling up like scales. Shadows slithered after her, their laughter a cacophony of nails on glass. A door materialized ahead. Archives. She slammed. It shut, plunging the room into silence. Her flashlight flickered over filing cabinets labeled "Terminated Subjects," "Serum Trials," "Breach Events." A folder jutted out, Dr. Elias Vorn. The photo stole her breath. The doctor from the tape stood beside a gurney, syringe in hand. The patient was himself. Notes crammed the margins. Serum V47 allows perception of alternate realities. But they perceive us too. The entity hijacked the trials. It wears my face now. It is here. It is in the rain. A sticky note clung to the page. Blood smeared beneath the words. Kill the host. Close the door. The door exploded inward. Liam lurched through, shadows swarming behind him. His skin had turned translucent, veins writhing like black worms. "You're too late," he gurgled, black bile pooling at his feet. The rain never stops. We're already. Kara lunged, driving a shattered syringe into his neck. He screamed, a human sound, raw and terrified. Light erupted from the wound, dissolving the shadows like paper in flame. The asylum shuddered, walls cracking, ceiling collapsing. A hand seized her shoulder, icy, skeletal. The shadow leaned close, its breath reeking of formaldehyde. "You think this ends here?" It gestured to the storm outside. "The door is open, and you..." It pressed a clawed finger to her chest. Her skin burned, the serum symbol glowing beneath her shirt. "Are marked." The floor gave way. Kara woke in her apartment, dawn bleeding through the blinds. No chains, no shadows, just the hum of the refrigerator and the drip of a leaky faucet. But the TV buzzed with static. She approached, dread coiling in her gut. The screen flickered. Security footage from Blackridge Asylum. Herself stood in room 309, drenched, smiling. Behind her, the shadow stretched across the wall, tendrils snaking into her ears, her mouth. A date stamped the corner. Tonight. Her phone rang. An unknown number, she answered. "Tick-tock, Kara." Her own voice laughed, dripping with static. "The rain's coming. And this time, you'll let us in." The line went dead. Outside, thunder rumbled. The first drops hit the window. The rain fell in thick, syrupy sheets, staining the world black. Kara stared at her reflection in the window, a ghost with ink-blot veins branching across her throat. They pulsed faintly, like parasites nesting under her skin. Her phone buzzed again, the screen cracked and glitching. Unknown caller. She answered, already knowing the voice. "Tick-tock, Kara." Her own laughter echoed back, warped and layered with static. "The rain's coming. And this time, you'll let us in." The line died. Outside, thunder growled. The first drops hit the glass, black and viscous, sliding down like tears of tar. The Vaughan Research Facility materialized through the storm, a concrete gargoyle swallowed by skeletal pines. Kara hadn't driven here. The road had bent, trees twisting aside as her car lurched forward, guided by the entity's will. The facility's doors hung open, rusted hinges screeching like dying animals. Inside, the air hummed. Not electricity. Something older. Hungrier. She descended into the archives, her boots sinking into black sludge oozing from steel cabinets. Files spilled from shelves, their pages brittle and reeking of formaldehyde. Symbols glowed in her periphery, the same ones carved into asylum walls, now etched into her mind. But one folder stopped her cold. Faded sketches showed patients strapped to beds, their skin mapped with black veins. Notes in looping cursive. The entity predates the serum. It has always been here, patient as the tides. Dr. Vaughan's clarity did not open the door. It merely turned the key. A photograph slipped free. A man stood beside a 19th century asylum, his face a mirror of the doctor from the tapes. Same sharp cheekbones, same hollow eyes. Dr. Elias Vorn. Impossible unless he'd cheated death for centuries. At the room's center sat the machine, a grotesque fusion of brass gears and copper wires, crowned by a hollow sphere crackling with sickly green light. The door. The storm followed her inside. Black rain pooled on the floor, rising to her ankles, cold as grave soil. Shadows peeled from the walls, their teeth glinting like shards of bone. "You're late," the entity rasped. It stood by the machine, its form solidified, a skeletal giant draped in translucent skin that rippled like oil on water. Rain slid through it, hissing where it touched the floor. Kara gripped the dagger she'd pried from a rusted display case. Silver, etched with symbols that matched the scars on her palms. "You think that toy can hurt me?" It laughed, the sound like shattering glass. "You're the door now. Your blood opened it. Your fear feeds it." She lunged. The blade passed harmlessly through its chest. "Pathetic," it sneered, backhanding her into a wall. Pain exploded in her ribs. "But useful. Your body will house us. Your world will drown." The machine roared to life. The sphere's light intensified, revealing the other side, a twisted reflection of the room teeming with shadows. They pressed against the light, claws screeching against an invisible barrier. "Watch," the entity hissed. The sphere fractured. A tendril of darkness slithered through, coiling around Kara's wrist. The veins under her skin writhed, burrowing deeper. Memories flooded her, not hers. Dr. Vorn in 1823, injecting himself with a crude serum. The entity slithering into his mind, whispering promises of immortality. His screams as he built the machine, hands moving against his will. Patients in 1983, strapped to gurneys, begging for death as the serum fused their souls to the other side. Their eyes turning black, their laughter echoing through asylum halls. Liam's last moments, the entity. Wearing his face, his voice, as it hollowed him out like a puppet. Kara's vision cleared. The dagger glowed in her hand, symbols burning white-hot. "You missed a page, Doctor," she spat, pulling a charred scrap from her pocket. Vorn's final note: the door must be sealed from both sides. The host must die in the light. The entity froze. "No!" It roared, lunging. She plunged the dagger into her own chest. White light erupted from the wound, blinding and pure. The shadows shrieked, recoiling like moths from flame. The machine's sphere imploded, sucking the darkness inward. The entity clawed at Kara, its form unraveling into smoke. "You don't know what you've done." The light consumed it, dissolving flesh and bone until only its voice remained, a fading snarl in the void. The facility shuddered. Walls cracked, ceilings collapsed. Kara stumbled to the machine, her blood sizzling where it dripped onto the gears. With the last of her strength, she slammed the dagger into the sphere. The explosion threw her back. Sunlight. Kara woke in a field, the research facility gone. No rain, no scars. Just birdsong and the distant hum of traffic. But in her pocket, a cassette tape. She played it. "You didn't win," her voice whispered, sweet and venomous. "You just delayed the inevitable. We're in every storm, every drop, and when you least expect it, a laugh, soft and cold. We'll knock." The tape melted, black ooze seeping into the soil. Kara stood, scanning the horizon. A single dark cloud lingered, impossibly still. She smiled. Story 2. The Black Box Experiments. Recordings from a facility that doesn't exist. The rain drummed against the abandoned radio tower like 1,000 skeletal fingers tapping Morse code. Dr. Eleanor Voss tightened her gloves, the Arctic wind biting through her parka. Her breath fogged the air as she stared at the coordinates on her GPS. A blinking dot in the middle of nowhere. Alaska. No roads, no towns, just wilderness and whispers. 3 years ago, she'd found the first tape in a dead man's attic. Milton Graves, a retired engineer, had died screaming about faces in the static. His family donated his belongings to the university, but Eleanor kept the reel-to-reel hidden. Its label, stamped classified, Project Labyrinth, had hooked her like a drug. Subject Gamma 7's temporal displacement is accelerating. A voice on the tape hissed through layers of analog decay. The black box is hungry. Now, standing in the shadow of the tower, she understood why Graves had clawed his own eyes out. The facility wasn't just off the grid. It defied logic. The steel door, half buried in permafrost, bore no markings. No rust, no weathering, just smooth gunmetal gray. The keypad glowed faintly green, its numbers worn by decades of input. She typed the code from Graves's notes, 7304. The door hissed open. Cold air slithered out, stinking of ozone and something sweetly rotten, like burnt sugar and rotting meat. Hello? Her voice echoed down a concrete corridor. No reply. Just the hum of dying fluorescent lights. The walls were lined with lead. To block signals, she thought, or trap them. At the corridor's end, a vault door stood ajar. Beyond it, the black box dominated the room. A matte black cube the size of a coffin. Its surface shimmered with symbols that pulsed faintly, like veins under skin. A single leather headset dangled from it, cracked with age. Eleanor pressed record. On her field recorder, Dr. Eleanor Voss, log entry 1, November 5th. I've located the black box, no signs of... She hesitated, eyeing the symbols. No signs of recent activity. Beginning playback of test Schlager 47. She threaded the first tape into a rusted reel-to-reel player. Log date, November 12, 1953. Dr. Richard Shaw, lead researcher. The voice was calm, clinical, but beneath it, a tremor. Black box test, Nora 47. Subject, Corporal Henry Marsh, 28. Healthy. No prior psychological issues. Exposure duration, 60 seconds. A click. Then a new voice, raw, terrified. I see them. In the static. They're crawling through the walls. Oh God, their faces. A scream. Wet. Guttural. Terminate exposure. Shaw barked. Silence. Then a sound Eleanor couldn't place, like radio static but alive. Chittering. Hungry. Corporal Marsh is... gone, Shaw whispered. No blood. No remains. The black box is empty, but we can still hear him. The recording ended. Eleanor's hands shook. The room felt colder. She loaded the next tape. Log date November 30th, 1953. Test number 52. Subject Dr. Shaw. His voice shook. I've seen what happens to the others, but the visions, they're clearer now. The static isn't noise, it's a language. And they're not hallucinations. They're echoes from... A door slammed. Static surged. When it cleared, Shaw's voice was different, flatter, colder. The black box must feed. Prepare subject number 53. Eleanor froze. Shaw had recorded this after his reported suicide. A metallic scrape echoed through the facility, like something dragging itself through vents. She kept listening. Log date. Voice unverified. A chorus of voices overlapping. Help us. Trapped in the static. It's coming through. Then, clear as a bell, her own voice, Eleanor. Turn it off before it sees you. The headset exploded in sparks. She stumbled back, heart hammering. The black box hummed now, its symbols pulsing faintly blue. The walls shimmered, reality itself seeming to peel at the edges. In the corner, a shadow thickened. Not a shadow, a stain. It spread across the floor, up the walls, resolving into shapes. Humanoid, but wrong. Limbs too long. Heads cocked at impossible angles. They had no faces, just static. Eleanor bolted, the facility twisting around her. Rooms folded into themselves. Hallways led back to the black box. A hand grasped her shoulder, icy, buzzing with white noise. You shouldn't have come alone, her own voice hissed. She spun. No one there. But on the floor, fresh words glowed in the static. It's inside you now. Back at camp, Eleanor poured vodka into her coffee, hands trembling. The storm raged louder, but beneath it, a new sound. White noise. Her satellite phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We found your car. See you soon. When she tried to reply, static poured from the speaker. She played her field recorder, desperate to document everything. But the playback made her vomit. Beneath her own voice, another layer. Hundreds of voices screaming in unison. And beneath that, a sound like teeth grinding against bone. That night, Eleanor dreamed of the black box. It sat in her tent, humming. The static spoke. We're the ones they erased, the experiments that worked, and you're our keyhole. She woke to her headlamp flickering. The tent walls were covered in symbols, the same ones from the box. Outside, the rain had stopped. The static hadn't. The static wasn't just in the air anymore, it was in her blood. Eleanor felt it humming beneath her skin as she trudged back to the facility, the Alaskan wind screaming like a chorus of the damned. Her gloves did nothing to stop the cold now. The symbols carved into her tent pulsed in time with her heartbeat, a sickening rhythm that guided her forward. She hadn't slept in days, didn't need to. The black box whispered to her in the quiet moments, its voice slithering through her thoughts like smoke. The steel door stood open, frost crystallizing along its edges. Inside, the walls had changed. The lead plating was gone, replaced by pulsating, black veins that throbbed like exposed nerves. The air reeked of ozone and burnt hair. The black box hovered at the center of the room, no longer a cube but a shifting void, its edges blurring as if reality itself were dissolving around it. A new tape sat on the floor, no label, just a smear of dried blood. Eleanor loaded it into the reel-to-reel, her breath fogging the frozen metal. Log date December 5th, 1953. Dr. Richard Shaw. Final entry. His voice was a wet rasp, punctuated by static. They're in the walls, in the air, the black box. It's not a machine. It's an organ, a living thing, and it's using us to birth itself into this world. The key is, a wet crunch cut him off. The tape hissed, then Shaw's voice returned, flatter, colder, wrong. Experiment. 53. Initiate convergence protocol. The host is ready. The reel-to-reel exploded, shards embedding in Eleanor's cheek. She didn't flinch. The pain felt distant, irrelevant. The symbols on her arms glowed brighter. tendrils of blue light snaking toward the black box. The tunnels, the facility had grown. Corridors branched where none existed before, walls warping into fleshy membranes that shuddered as she passed. Eleanor followed the static, its pull magnetic. The deeper she went, the thicker the air became, a cloying sweetness that coated her tongue, like rotting fruit and chemical antiseptic. She found the lab buried beneath layers of ice, machines lined, the walls their purpose unreadable, glass tanks filled with black fluid, surgical tools fused to the floor by rust. A film projector sat at the center, its reel spinning endlessly. The film showed Dr. Shaw strapped to a chair. Static tendrils poured from the black box, burrowing into his eyes, his mouth. His body convulsed, spine arching as his skin peeled, back to reveal shifting static beneath. The camera zoomed in. His face wasn't his anymore. Dozens of eyes blinked beneath his skin, mouths screaming in silent unison. The film burned out. The projector kept running, its empty light casting shadows that moved. The sacrifice, Eleanor's radio crackled to life. A voice she recognized. Her thesis advisor, Dr. Cole, dead 10 years. You were always my brightest, Eleanor. Now finish what Shaw started. A map scrawled itself onto the wall in glowing blue, a labyrinth leading deeper into the earth. The symbols on her skin burned, guiding her. The chamber at the end took her breath away. A massive circular door, iron rivets weeping black sludge. Symbols identical to hers covered its surface, pulsing in time with the static in her veins. At its center, a handprint, human, but twice the size of hers. Shaw's journal fell open in her hands, pages flipping on their own. The gate requires a sacrifice. Blood of the key, bone of the host. The static roared in her skull. Open it, she pressed her palm to the door. The symbols flared white hot. The other side. The door vanished. Eleanor stood in a cavern so vast the walls disappeared. The ground wasn't rock. It shifted underfoot, a living carpet of static that writhed and whispered. Above, a false sky churned with faces. The test subjects, Dr. Shaw, Milton Graves. Their mouths stretched in silent screams. The black box floated ahead, its form unraveling into tendrils that fed the void. At its base, a figure waited. Dr. Shaw, or what was left of him. His body flickered between solid and static, one eye human, the other a swirling void. You're late, he said, her own voice layered beneath his. The static surged. Eleanor's vision fractured. A hospital room. Her mother screaming as static poured from a newborn Eleanor's mouth. Shaw injecting himself with black fluid, his skin dissolving. 1,000 doors opening across the world, static, devouring cities. You've always been one of us. The static chorused. Now wake up. Convergence. Eleanor woke in the snow. The facility was gone. The storm had stopped. Her skin was clean, no symbols, no static. For a moment, she dared to hope. Then her radio crackled. This is Anchorage Emergency Broadcast System. Seek shelter immediately. Unknown atmospheric phenomenon approaching. The transmission dissolved into static. Eleanor looked up. The northern lights shimmered, not green, but pulsing black and blue. They curved toward the horizon, converging on a single point. A city. Her. Hands moved without thought. Packing gear, fueling the snowmobile. The static purred in her mind, warm and familiar. Hurry, it cooed. They're waiting. As she sped south, The first black flakes began to fall, snow filled with shifting static. The static snow fell in relentless waves, burying the world under a shifting black shroud. Eleanor leaned into the snowmobile's throttle, her breath crystallizing in the air. Anchorage's skyline pulsed ahead, distorted by the aurora overhead, a sickly writhing mass of veins clawing at the clouds. She'd seen the final broadcast before her radio died. Bodies collapsing in streets, static erupting from their eyes and mouths. The warning looped in her mind. Not snow. Repeat, do not touch the... A shadow moved in the road. Dr. Shaw stood there, lab coat pristine, face flickering between static and flesh. One eye remained human, wide with terror. The other was a void. "Turn back," he rasped, voice skipping, like a broken record. "It's already inside you. Anchorage is the first heartbeat." She revved the engine. "You're not real." He smiled, teeth glitching into jagged pixels. "Neither are you." The snowmobile plowed through him. He dissolved into static that clung to her goggles, whispering, "Follow the frequency." Downtown Anchorage was a graveyard. Cars sat abandoned, doors hanging open. Bodies lay half buried in the static snow, faces frozen in silent screams. The air buzzed, a subsonic hum vibrating in Eleanor's molars. She followed it to a radio tower downtown, its mast spearing the corrupted aurora. The tower's doors were sealed, but the black box pulsed inside. She felt it, larger now, feeding on the city's fear. The basement studio hummed with electricity. Screens flickered with static. A reel-to-reel spun, its label smeared in blood. Final transmission. The black box is everywhere. Eleanor pressed play. Her own voice crackled through the speakers, warped and layered. Log date, convergence. The host is compatible. The signal is spreading. Phase 3 initiates in... A countdown flashed on the screens. EU005, Gracecorn 4 minutes. The studio door slammed shut. Wires dropped from the ceiling, squirming like serpents. They coiled around Eleanor's limbs, dragging her toward an altar of cables and monitors. The black box pulsed at its center, ribcage split open, static churning within. "Join us," the tower's speakers boomed. Shaw's voice, her voice, 1,000 others. She fought, but the wires tightened, needles piercing her wrists. Symbols reignited under her skin, burning blue. Memories flooded her, not hers. Shaw in 1953, injecting black fluid, his body unraveling, merging with the static. The first broadcast, a pulse that melted a technician's mind. Milton Graves clawing at his ears as the signal burrowed deeper. Herself in the tent, static snow seeping into her lungs, her blood. "You've always been the carrier," the voices chorused. "Now be the conduit." The countdown hit 00:1. The needles injected cold into her veins. Anchorage dissolved. Eleanor floated in the static, unmoored from time. Cities flickered below. Anchorage, Seattle, Tokyo, each consumed by black snow. The black box loomed above, a cancerous star feeding on the signal. Dr. Shaw materialized beside her, form flickering. "You still think you're saving them?" he hissed. "You're the plague. The world burns because you couldn't stop listening." He lunged, static claws raking her throat. She fought back, tearing at his glitching flesh. "You did this." "No." He laughed, dissolving. "You did." The truth struck her. She'd carried the signal from the wilderness. She'd infected the airwaves. The static had been in her all along. The countdown hit 0. Eleanor woke on the altar, the black box fused to her chest. Wires snaked from her ribs into the tower's machinery. Studio screens flickered to life, her face pixelating across every channel. "This is Dr. Eleanor Voss," she whispered, static bleeding from her lips. "If you can hear this, don't listen." Her body spasmed. The signal took over. Convergence initiated. Lower your shields. Embrace the static. The tower erupted. A pulse of black light tearing through the atmosphere. The aurora shattered, raining static across the globe. Eleanor stood on a hill overlooking Anchorage. The city was gone, replaced by a shifting mass of static. Buildings melting into noise. People frozen mid-scream. The black box loomed overhead, tendrils knitting a new sky. Dr. Shaw materialized beside her, fully static now. "Beautiful, isn't it?" She said nothing. The static was her skin. "What now?" "Now." He gestured to the horizon. "We expand." In the distance, another pulse erupted. Tokyo's silhouette warped, dissolving. Eleanor smiled. The static had won. Tokyo dissolved first, its neon skyline collapsing into fractal patterns of noise. Then Berlin, Mumbai, New York. Cities fell like dominoes, consumed by the black snow that devoured light and sound and flesh. Eleanor stood, at the eye of the storm, her body a conduit for the signal. The black box's tendrils rooted in her chest. She felt every pulse, every scream, as the static rewrote the world. But in the silence between transmissions, a voice lingered. Her own, buried deep, and this. The Arctic called her back. The storm met her at the edge of the ice. Wind screamed, hurling static snow like shrapnel. The research facility, her facility, loomed ahead, its radio tower bent into a grotesque arch, thrumming with energy. The air tasted metallic, charged with a frequency that made her bones vibrate. She'd come to finish what Shaw started, or undo it. The entity waited inside. It wore Shaw's face, but the static had refined him. His form shimmered, edges blurring, into the walls, the floor, the air itself. The black box pulsed behind him, now colossal, its surface alive with writhing symbols. "You're late," it said, her voice layered beneath his. The finale's already begun. Screens lined the walls, showing cities unraveling. A mother in Sao Paulo clutched her child as static devoured them. A man in Cairo clawed at his dissolving hands. Eleanor's own reflection glitched in the glass. Half human, half static, the black box's tendrils squeezing her heart. "Turn it off," she demanded. The entity laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You are the switch, Doctor. And you've been on this whole time." She lunged, but the static held her fast. "You're not a savior," it hissed. "You're a catalyst, a flaw in the code. Let go." The walls wept black sludge. The floor buckled. She'd prepared for this. In the static's grip, Eleanor focused on the memory of Milton Graves, the first victim, his attic, his terror, his final tape, hidden in a box of Christmas decorations. She'd missed it before, but now she heard it. A weak signal beneath the noise. A flaw in the code. Log date, December 24th, 1953. Graves' voice whispered. "Shaw's gone. The box is alive. But there's a kill switch. A frequency buried in the tape dissolved into screams. But it was enough." Eleanor's hand snapped to her chest, fingers digging into the black box's tendrils. They resisted, slicing her palms, but she tore them free. The pain was electric, beautiful. "You forget," she spat. blood and static dripping down her arms. I'm the one who listens. She slammed her fists into the black box. Reality splintered. Eleanor fell through layers of static, memories flashing. The facility in 1953. Shaw injecting himself, not with serum, with liquid static. His body unraveling, merging with the box. Milton Graves years later, stumbling onto the truth. Recording the kill switch frequency. Hiding it where only she'd find it. Herself in the tent, static snow seeping into her lungs, her blood, her mind. The entity pursued her, formless and furious. You'll kill them all, it roared. I'll free them, she shot back. The core of the black box awaited, a pulsing black star. Eleanor pressed her bloody hands to it. This ends now, she broadcast. The kill switch. The static screamed. Anchorage froze. Tokyo stuttered. The black snow halted mid-fall, suspended like ash. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then the backlash hit. The black box imploded, sucking the static into its void. The entity clawed, and Eleanor dissolving as it dragged her with it. We'll both burn, it shrieked. Good, she said. The facility collapsed. The Arctic ice cracked. And Eleanor Voss, the woman who'd carried the plague and the cure, let the static take her. The snow fell clean. In Anchorage, survivors stumbled into the light, their skin unmarked, their eyes clear. The aurora faded, leaving a pale blue sky. But in dead zones, abandoned bunkers, drowned cities, the static lingered. Whispers in radios, shadows in static, a voice on the wind. This is Dr. Eleanor Voss. If you can hear this, don't listen. Don't ever stop listening. Some swear they see her in the static, a flicker of lab coat, a glint of glasses. Always one step ahead, always watching. Story 3. Project Lazarus. Experiments erased from history. Rain hammered the Jeep's roof like fists, the storm swallowing the Appalachian Mountains whole. Dr. Clara Vale squinted through the windshield, her GPS flickering. 23.7 miles to destination. A destination scrubbed from every map, satellite image, and government ledger. A ghost. Just like Project Lazarus. She'd chased it for years. A footnote in a declassified CIA file, a whisper in conspiracy forums, a single line in a dead scientist's journal. They brought the dead back, and it brought something else. Now here she was, miles from civilization, chasing a myth through a storm that felt too alive. The Jeep lurched over a collapsed bridge, tires skidding on moss-slick stones. The road dissolved into a dirt path choked by pines. Clara killed the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by the rain's relentless drumming. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark, revealing a chain-link fence ahead. Rusted, sagging, barbed wire curled like dead snakes. A sign hung crookedly. Restricted. Area trespassers will be prosecuted. The P in prosecuted had faded. Clara smirked. Prosecuted by whom? The trees? She clipped the fence with bolt cutters, the metal shrieking. Beyond it, the forest thinned, revealing a concrete bunker half buried in the hillside. Its steel door bore no markings, just a keypad glowing faintly green. Clara typed the code from the journal, 04091967. The door hissed open. Cold air slithered out, reeking of formaldehyde and something older, wet earth, rotting lilies, and the metallic tang of old blood. The bunker was a time capsule frozen in 1967. Flickering fluorescence illuminated peeling posters. Project Lazarus. Security clearance level 5 required. Desks sat in disarray. Typewriters mid-sentence. Coffee mugs fossilized with mold. File cabinets gaped open, spilling papers onto the floor. Clara's boot crunched glass. She knelt, lifting a framed photo. A group of men in lab coats smiled stiffly. Behind them, a hospital bed. The patient's face was scratched out. Subject 0, she whispered. A sound echoed, a wet, rhythmic drip. She followed it deeper, her flashlight beam trembling. The hallway narrowed, walls closing in. The air thickened, each breath coating her tongue with the taste of decay. The hall ended at a reinforced door. Rust streaked its surface like dried blood. A red light blinked above it. Quarantine lock active. Clara pried open the control panel, wires spilling like intestines. She crossed 2 cables. The door groaned open. The room beyond was a nightmare. Hospital beds lined the walls, leather straps dangling like severed limbs. IV stands lay toppled, needles crusted with brown residue. The floor was a mosaic of shattered glass and yellowed files. But the walls stopped her cold, covered in symbols. Not written, carved, deep gashes forming spirals, lidless eyes, jagged teeth. And the smell, thick, sweet, rotting meat left in the sun. A desk sat at the room's center. On it, a reel-to-reel recorder, dust-free. A single tape waited. Clara pressed play. Log date, October 9th, 1967. Dr. Elias Quinn, lead researcher. The voice was calm, almost bored. Subject 0 has been stabilized. Vital signs nominal. Neural activity anomalous. He speaks in a language the linguists can't place. Ancient. Predates Sumerian. We've begun phase 2. Cognitive research. A scream tore through the recording. High-pitched, agonized. Christ, sedate him, sedate. The tape dissolved into static. When it cleared, Dr. Quinn's voice had changed. Raspy, desperate. It's not him. It's not human. The symbol, they're not delusions. They're a map, and it's coming through. I have to... A wet crunch. The tape ended. Clara's breath fogged the air. The room had grown colder. She opened the desk's lone drawer. Inside, a leather-bound journal. Blood streaked its cover. Dr. Quinn's final entries, October 10th, 1967. Subject 0's body is decaying rapidly, yet he speaks. He says we've opened a door. The others think it's psychosis. I know better. October 12th, 1967. The symbols appeared overnight. The staff are changing. Whitaker tried to carve them into his arm. They sedated him. He's gone now. October 15th, 1967. It's here. In the walls. In us. The door is open. God help whoever finds this. The last page held a sketch. A spiral with 7 eyes. Clara traced it, her finger catching on dried blood. Her flashlight flickered. Drip. 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 She turned. A figure stood in the doorway. Tall. Emaciated. Its skin gray and sagging, stretched over bones that jutted at wrong angles. No eyes. Just hollow sockets leaking black fluid. Drip. 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 It smiled, teeth sharp and splintered. You're late, it rasped. Clara's flashlight died. The thing moved, a wet, shuffling drag. Clara backed into the desk, her hands scrabbling. For anything. A scalpel, a broken vial. Cold air coiled around her ankles. Elias failed. The thing gurgled, its voice a chorus, Dr. Quinn's timbre layered with others. But you'll finish it. She lunged sideways, glass crunching underfoot. Her hip struck a bed frame. Straps brushed her arm, cold and slimy. The thing laughed, a sound like cracking ice. Run, it's more fun. She bolted, blind in the dark. Her shoulders slammed into the doorframe. The hallway stretched endlessly, walls vibrating with a low, subsonic hum. Behind her, the drip, drip, drip quickened. She stumbled into a side room, a lab. Cabinets hung open, spilling syringes and vials of black fluid. A fridge hummed in the corner. Clara wedged herself behind it, breath sawing in her throat. The drip paused. Silence. Then, found you. The fridge door wrenched open. The thing loomed, black fluid pooling at its feet. Clara swung a broken IV pole. It struck the thing's ribs with a sickening crack. Rude, it hissed, swatting her aside. She crashed into a cabinet, vials shattered, glass biting her palms. The thing leaned close, its breath reeking of copper and spoiled milk. You'll open the door wider, it whispered, or I'll peel your mind apart, starting with him. A flicker of memory seared. Her brain, her brother Michael, pale in a hospital bed. The doctor saying car accident, the funeral, the empty casket. No, she screamed. The thing laughed. Ask Elias. He learned too late. It vanished, leaving Clara alone in the dark. In the hallway, a flicker of light. A door ajar. Archive. Inside, shelves groaned with files. Clara grabbed a random folder. Subject number 14. Male, 42. Cause of death, gunshot wound. Revival successful. Subject spoke in tongues for 72 hours before. The rest was redacted. Another file. Subject number 23. Female, 19. Drowned. Revival successful. Subject drew symbols identical to subject zeros. Terminated. A Polaroid slipped free. A girl strapped to a bed, her skin carved with spirals. Clara's hands shook. The symbols on the walls. They matched Michael's doodles in the months before his death. Coincidence. It has to be. A cold breath tickled her neck. Not a coincidence. She spun. Empty air. The lights flickered. On the wall, words scrawled in black fluid find the door. The door to the archive creaked shut behind Clara, sealing her in with the weight of decades-old sins. The words on the wall, find the door, glowed faintly, the black fluid dripping like tar. Her brother's face flashed in her mind again. Michael, sketching spirals in his notebook, murmuring about voices in the walls weeks before his accident. Not an accident, she realized. A warning. The creature's laughter echoed through the vents, distorted and wet. Tick-tock, doctor. Clara shoved the Polaroid of the carved girl into her pocket and grabbed a handful of files. The pages crumbled as she ran, her flashlight beam bouncing off walls that seemed to breathe. The hallway twisted, floors slanting unnaturally. A door loomed ahead. Morgue. Inside, steel drawers lined the walls. Clara yanked one open. Empty. The next held a skeleton, its ribs cracked outward as if something had burst free. The third, Subject 0. The nameplate was rusted but legible. The drawer screeched as she pulled it. A corpse lay inside, mummified, its lips stitched shut with wire. Symbols carved into its chest matched the walls, but it was the eyes that froze her. Open, milky white, and tracking her. "He's been waiting," the creature hissed from the doorway. Clara slammed the drawer shut. The morgue lights flickered. When they steadied, the creature stood inches from her, black fluid pooling around its feet. "The door won't open itself," it rasped, tilting its head. "Unless you'd rather I peel your brother's screams. From your skull first?" A migraine spiked behind her eyes. Images flooded her. Michael strapped to a bed, symbols scalded into his skin, screaming as static poured from his mouth. "Stop!" she screamed, clutching her head. "Find the door." The creature vanished, leaving a trail of black sludge. Clara followed the ooze deeper into the bunker, her boots sticking to the floor. The walls pulsed now, veins of static writhing beneath cracked plaster. She passed labs filled with broken equipment, surgical theaters stained brown, and a chapel, of all things, its pews overturned, hymnals open to pages scribbled with symbols. The trail ended at a stairwell descending into pitch black. A sign hung askew. "Sublevel 3. Authorized personnel only." The stairs groaned under her weight. The air grew colder, sharper, each breath like inhaling needles. At the bottom, a vault door stood ajar, frost spiderwebbing its surface. Inside, the room was a perfect cube, no symbols, no equipment, just a single chair bolted to the floor, restraints dangling. Above it, a speaker hissed static. Clara approached. The chair's leather was cracked, stained with dark patches. A nameplate on the armrest, Dr. Elias Quinn. The speaker crackled. Log date, October 16th, 1967. Quinn's voice, trembling. "There, inside me, in my blood, my bones. The door. It's not a metaphor. It's here, under the bunker. They want me to open it fully, but I can't. I won't." A wet gasp. "If you're hearing this, you found sublevel 3. The key is in the morgue. Subject Zero's eyes, they're the lock. Destroy them and..." A gurgle. The tape cut off. Clara's hand shook. Subject Zero's eyes. The milky white eyes that had watched her. The creature's laughter boomed through the speaker. "Too late for heroics, Doctor. Look up." The ceiling peeled open, static cascading like a waterfall. Within it, shapes moved, humanoid, but distorted, their limbs too long, faces featureless voids. "They're hungry," the creature whispered in her ear. "Open the door, or they'll feast on every memory you've ever loved." Michael's face filled her mind again, this time older, paler, strapped to a bed in this very bunker, screaming as surgeons carved symbols into his flesh. "He begged for you," the creature taunted. "Where were you, Clara?" Tears blurred her vision. "He died in a car accident. He's gone." Liar. The static surged, wrapping around her wrists, dragging her toward the chair. "Sit. Let's finish Elias's work." She fought, but the static was relentless. Cold leather pressed against her skin as the restraints snapped shut. The speaker blared, a frequency that vibrated her teeth, her bones, her soul. The floor beneath the chair split open, revealing a shaft plunging into darkness. A cold wind roared up, carrying whispers in a language that predated words. "Almost there," the creature crooned, its form flickering into the chair beside her. One last push. Clara's vision doubled. She saw the bunker, and another place, older, where the walls bled and the air was thick with the stench of rot. A massive door stood there, covered in eyes, Subject Zero's eyes. Now, the creature hissed. Open it. Clara closed her eyes, focused on Quinn's final words. Destroy them. She wrenched her hand free, grabbing the fire axe mounted nearby. The creature howled as she swung, not at it, but at the speaker. The axe struck. Silence. The static died. The shaft closed. The creature writhed, its form unraveling. Fool, it screamed. They'll come anyway. They're in your blood. In your... The axe fell again. The creature dissolved into black mist. Clara collapsed, sweat and blood slicking her skin. The bunker shuddered, walls cracking. She staggered back to the morgue, the files burning in her pocket. Subject Zero's drawer was empty. Only a note remained. You can't kill what's already dead. Find me where the door opened first. Clara's radio crackled to life. A voice she hadn't heard in years. Clara, help me. Michael. The transmission cut to coordinates. A town 200 miles north. A town erased from maps in 1967. As the bunker collapsed around her, Clara ran. Not away, toward. The coordinates led Clara to a town swallowed by wilderness. Pine trees clawed at rusted street signs, their metal warped and pockmarked. A faded billboard read, "Welcome to Blackwater Pop." 413. No one had welcomed anyone here since 1967. The Jeep died at the town's edge, engine sputtering static. Clara stepped out, her boots sinking into mud that reeked of sulfur. The air hummed, not with cicadas or wind, but with the same low-frequency drone she'd heard in the bunker. The door's heartbeat, she thought. Main Street was a graveyard. Storefronts gaped like skulls, windows shattered. A diner's neon sign buzzed faintly, flickering open in blood-red light. Inside, plates sat moldering on tables. Coffee cups half full, liquid long evaporated to black sludge. A child's laughter echoed. Clara spun. Nothing but shadows. Over here, a voice whispered. Michael's voice. She followed it to a church, its steeple leaning like a broken spine. The doors hung open, hinges screeching. Inside, pews were overturned, hymnals scattered. The altar was a mess of melted candles and dried blood. Above it, a mural, a massive door, its surface covered in eyes. At its base, a spiral with 7 symbols Clara recognized from Subject Zero's carvings. You're close, Michael's voice echoed from the confessional. Clara approached, hand on her knife. The curtain rustled. She yanked it open. Empty. Tape recorder sat on the seat. She pressed play. Log date, October 17, 1967, Dr. Elias Quinn. His voice trembled, barely audible over static. Blackwater wasn't a town, it was a test. They resurrected the whole damn cemetery. But the dead, they didn't come back alone. The door is a scream. The tape cut off. Clara pocketed. As the church doors slammed shut. The laughter returned high and manic. Clara followed it to the cemetery, her flashlight beam slicing through fog. Tombstones leaned like rotten teeth. One plot stood fresh, dirt unearthed, coffin exposed. Inside, no body, just a spiral carved into the wood. You shouldn't have come. Clara turned. A figure stood among the graves. Michael, but wrong. His skin was gray, eyes milky white. Symbols glowed beneath his tattered shirt. You're not him, she whispered. No, it said, Michael's face rippling like water. But he's here. Trapped, like the others. The ground trembled. Tombstones cracked. Skeletal hands erupted from the soil, grasping. Clara stumbled back as the thing wearing Michael's skin advanced. "Open the door, Clara, or he'll suffocate in the static forever." She ran. The town twisted, streets folding into alleys, buildings melting into walls of thorns. The laughter chased her, closer each time she slowed. A neon motel sign flickered. Vacancy. Clara barricaded herself in room 7. The walls were papered in news clippings. Local boy dies in tragic accident. 1965. Blackwater quarantined. Unidentified. Virus 1967. Government denies Project Lazarus exists. A photo stopped her cold. Michael, age 16, standing beside Dr. Quinn. Both wore lab coats. No, he died in 2005. He was just a kid in... The door exploded inward. The creature stood there, Michael's face sloughing off like wax. Beneath it, Subject Zero's mummified visage, lips still stitched with wire. Lazarus never just raised the dead. It rasped. It replaced them. Your brother volunteered. For you. Clara's legs gave out. The hospital bills. The experimental treatments, Michael's late-night calls. He signed over his corpse to save you from cancer. And we gave him upgrades. The creature lunged. Clara rolled aside, slashing with her knife. The blade sank into its ribs, releasing a gush of black fluid. It howled, static erupting from the wound. "He's in the door!" it screamed. "All of them are. Open it!" Clara fled to the church. The mural's eyes followed her. She pressed Quinn's tape into a dusty player wired to the altar speakers. "Door isn't a place. It's a frequency." Quinn's voice boomed. "Destroy the transmitter buried beneath..." The creature tackled her, snapping the tape. They crashed into the mural. Plaster shattered, revealing a tunnel. Cold air roared up, carrying whispers. Too late, the creature hissed. "It's open." Clara grabbed a shard of plaster, sharp, jagged, and plunged it into the creature's chest. "This is for Michael." It shrieked, dissolving into static. The tunnel descended into a concrete bunker identical to the first. At its heart, a massive transmitter hummed, its dial set to 4091967, the frequency from the journal. Clara swung a fire axe. Metal sparked. The transmitter screamed, a sound like 1,000 dying radios. The bunker shook. The transmitter exploded, light searing her vision. Silence. Clara woke in the church, dawn bleeding through broken stained glass. The mural was gone. The town? Normal. Birds chirped. Sunlight glinted off unbroken windows. Her radio crackled. "Clara, it's me. I'm here. At the coordinates." Michael's voice. She stood, aching. The road out was clear, but in the cemetery, one tombstone remained fresh. Clara Vale, 1985-2023. She opened the door. The coordinates led Clara to a stretch of highway swallowed by overgrown pines. A rusted sign lay buried in weeds. "Now leaving Blackwater. Come back soon." The town behind her was silent, its illusion of normality crumbling. Windows cracked. Blood-red light pulsed in the diner's neon sign. The church steeple groaned, collapsing inward, but Clara didn't look back. The Jeep's engine roared as she followed Michael's voice through the static-choked radio. "Clara, I'm here," where it all began. The road ended at a cliff, overlooking a valley. Below, a concrete complex sprawled, a twin to the Lazarus bunker but larger. Antennas jutted from its roof, their skeletal frames humming with residual energy. "Home, sweet home," the creature whispered, its voice slithering from the Jeep's speakers. Clara's hands tightened on the wheel. The radio hissed. "You didn't think there was only one door, did you?" She parked at the valley's edge, grabbed her pack, and descended. The air thickened with the stench of ozone and rot. Symbols glowed faintly on the complex's walls, older, deeper carvings than the bunkers. The entrance was a steel mouth. Rusted teeth parted. Clara stepped inside. The facility was alive. Walls pulsed like veins. Floors undulated, tiles replaced by fleshy membranes. Clara's boots stuck with every step. The static here had weight, pressing against her skin like a suffocating blanket. Michael's voice echoed from the ceiling. "Down here, sis." She followed it to a lab. Monitors flickered, showing grainy footage. Dr. Quinn, younger, grinning, beside a teenage boy, Michael. Both wore lab coats, both alive. Subject 47, Quinn's voice narrated from a hidden speaker. Genetic compatibility confirmed, proceeding with Lazarus protocol. The footage cut to Michael strapped to a table, symbol scalded into his chest. He screamed as static poured from his mouth, eyes turning milky white. "Stop," Clara whispered. The screens exploded. Glass rained down as the creature emerged. Michael's face stitched over Subject Zero's mummified skull, wires snaking from its ribs. "You wanted the truth," it hissed. "Here it is." The walls peeled back, revealing a cavernous chamber below. Hundreds of doors lined the walls, each identical to the mural in Blackwater's church. At the center, a massive transmitter pulsed, its dial set to 0409197. "The first frequency," the creature said. "The first door. Quinn opened it here in 1967. And your brother, he walked right through." Clara's knife trembled in her hand. "Why him?" "Bloodlines," it rasped. "The door needs anchors. Quinn used his own, until he burned out. Michael volunteered for you." The truth punched through her, the cancer, the experimental treatment that saved her. The clinical trial Michael never discussed. "He gave his corpse to Lazarus," the creature said, "and we gave him purpose. Now it's your turn." It lunged. Clara dodged, slashing at the wires. The creature howled, static erupting from severed cables. She sprinted to the transmitter, Quinn's journal fluttering open in her mind. "The frequency is the key. Reverse the polarity. Collapse the doors." Her hands flew across the controls. Dials spun. The transmitter shrieked, shaking the chamber. "No!" The creature tackled her, its weight crushing. "You'll kill him!" Clara drove her knife into its chest. "He's already gone." Black fluid gushed. The creature reeled, Michael's face melting into static. "You'll die too." "The cancer. Lazarus is the only thing holding it back." She froze. "Check your pulse," it gurgled. Clara's wrist throbbed. Black veins spidered beneath her skin. The creature laughed. "Quinn's last gift. The door sustains you. Destroy it." And Clara stood, her reflection warping in the transmitter's glass. The black veins climbed her neck. "Choose," the creature whispered. The transmitter's hum rose to a deafening scream. Clara gripped the master switch, Michael's laugh. His sketchbook filled with spirals. His voice the night he died. "You'll beat this, Clara, promise me." She threw the switch. The frequency reversed. The doors exploded inward, static howling as they collapsed. The creature dissolved, screaming. The walls liquefied. The floor buckled. Clara stumbled to the transmitters. Core, a glowing orb of liquid static. Quinn's journal flashed in her mind. The source must be consumed. She plunged her hands into the orb. Cold, heat, pain, power. The static flooded her veins, burning the cancer, the black tendrils, the fear. She screamed as her bones lit up, symbols etching themselves into her skin. The facility imploded. Clara woke in the valley, dawn bleeding through smoke. The complex was gone, reduced to a smoldering crater. Her hands were clean, the symbols faded, but the static, it hummed in her ears. A new frequency. Her radio crackled. Voices spilled out. Not the creatures. Others. Help us entrapped. In the static. Clara lifted the radio. Where are you? Everywhere, they whispered. You're our bridge now. She stood, the weight of the transmitter's power coursing through her. The static bent around her, obeying. In the distance, a shadow moved, a figure with milky eyes and a stitched mouth. Michael, not a monster, a ghost. You kept your promise, he said, fading. Now keep theirs. Clara turned to the horizon. Cities glimmered. The static murmured, eager. She smiled. Story 4. The hollow transmissions. Signals from an empty facility. Rain slashed sideways, turning the dirt road into a river of mud. Journalist Ethan Carter white-knuckled the steering wheel, his windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the storm. The coordinates on his GPS pulsed, 2.1 miles to destination. A destination that didn't exist. Not on any map, not in any record. But Ethan had heard it. Everyone had heard it. 2 weeks ago, a rogue radio frequency began bleeding into stations, nationwide. No words, just static whispers and a low, resonant hum that left listeners nauseous and paranoid. Then, the videos surfaced. Grainy footage of a concrete tower in the Nevada desert, its antennas crackling with unearthly light. The uploader's account vanished hours later. The internet scrubbed the videos. But Ethan had saved one frame. AI sign on the tower's base, Facility 7, authorized personnel only. Now here he was, chasing a ghost signal into a storm that felt less like weather and more like a warning. The Jeep lurched, tires spinning. Ethan cursed, grabbing his gear. He trudged into the storm, flashlight beam swallowed by the downpour. The desert here was wrong. No cacti, no scrub, just cracked earth and jagged rocks that glittered like obsidian under his boots. The tower appeared suddenly, a black monolith clawing at the sky. No fences, no guards, just a steel door rusted shut. Ethan pried it open with a crowbar, the metal screaming. Cold air rushed out, smelling of ozone and burnt hair. Inside, the facility was a tomb frozen in time. Dust-coated monitors lined the walls, their screens dark. Desks sprawled with yellowed logbooks and coffee cups fossilized by mold. A bulletin board hung crookedly, pinned with a faded memo. Project Echo, terminated 11/22/1987. All data expunged. Ethan snapped photos, his camera, flash bouncing off something metallic. A reel-to-reel recorder on a central desk. Its spools were threaded with tape labeled Transmission.1. He pressed play. A man's voice crackled through decades of decay. Calm. Official. Log date. November 15, 1987. Dr. Raymond Hayes, lead researcher. Initial tests of the Echo array. Successful. We've isolated frequency 7.3H, a resonance that appears to interact with organic matter. A pause. Papers shuffled. Test subject 1A. A cactus exposed for 60 seconds. Within hours, it grew thorns resembling human hair. Dissection revealed structures akin to vocal cords inside the stem. Another pause. A shaky breath. Test subject 3C. A lab rat. After 30 seconds of exposure, it began emitting sounds, not squeaks, words. We've ordered a full containment protocol. The tape dissolved into static. When it cleared, Dr. Hayes's voice was garbled, panicked. They're in the walls. The hum. It's not a frequency, it's a language. Don't let it. A wet crunch. The tape snapped. Ethan's skin prickled. The air felt thicker, heavier, as if the walls were breathing. He pocketed the tape and pressed deeper into the facility. The hallway ended at a vault door labeled Echo Chamber, Extreme Biohazard. The lock was broken. Ethan shouldered it open. The chamber was circular, lined with soundproofing foam. In the center stood a chair bolted to the floor, restraints dangling. Above it, a speaker the size of a refrigerator hung from the ceiling, its grill dented outward. From the inside, Ethan's flashlight caught something on the floor. Dozens of cassette tapes scattered like bones. He crouched, reading the labels. Test subject 5D. Human, his blood went cold. The first tape hissed to life. Log date, November 21st, 1987. Test subject 5D. Ryan Mitchell, 34. Healthy. Volunteer. Dr. Hayes again, but his voice trembled. Frequency exposure, 10 seconds. Man's voice. Ryan laughed nervously. Feels like my teeth are vibrating, Doc. Is that normal? Proceed. A switch clicked. A hum filled the tape. Deep, primal, alive. Ethan's molars ached. Ryan screamed. Make it stop. Make it steep. The hum swelled. Ryan's screams twisted into something else. Guttural, linguistic. Kill. Bridge. Open. Dr. Hayes. Terminate exposure. Now. The hum died. Ryan sobbed. It's inside me. Singing. Make it stop. The tape ended. Ethan stood, his head pounding. The air hummed faintly, resonating with the memory of the frequency. He loaded the next tape. Log date, November 22nd, 1987. Final entry. Dr. Hayes whispered, each word trembling. Ryan is gone. The others too. The hum. It rewrites DNA. Unmakes reality. The echo array isn't a transmitter, it's a receiver. And something answered. A crash. Glass shattered. They're here. In the static. In the walls. If you're hearing this, destroy the tape cut off. Ethan's flashlight flickered. It wasn't on the tape. The sound came from above. He looked up. The speaker's grill trembled. Something pressed against it from within. Fingertips. Gray. Withered. Too long. The grill bulged. Ethan ran. The facility doors slammed shut ahead of him. The hum crescendoed, vibrating his ribs, his skull. He turned. The speaker burst. Open. It crawled out. A humanoid shape of static and flesh, limbs elongating and snapping like rubber bands. No face, just a gaping mouth full of jagged, crystalline teeth. The thing lunged. Ethan ducked, scrambling into a side room, control booth. He slammed the door, locking it with a rusted latch. The thing slammed against the door, denting metal. Ethan Ethan scanned the booth. Control panels, a dusty terminal, and a journal splayed open. Dr. Hayes's last words. The array must be destroyed. Overload the core. Let the frequency consume itself. Outside, the door buckled. Ethan typed commands into the terminal. Error messages flashed. The door split. The thing oozed through, static crackling around it. Ethan smashed the terminal with a fire extinguisher. Sparks flew. The hum turned to a shriek. The facility shook. Lights exploded. The thing recoiled, dissolving into smoke. Ethan stumbled into the storm as the tower collapsed behind him, consumed by a vortex of static and lightning. His Jeep was gone. Tracks led into the desert. The storm had cleared, replaced by a starless sky. Ethan's phone buzzed. A notification, new voicemail, unknown number. He played it. You shouldn't have run, Dr. Hayes's voice whispered. The frequency isn't in the tower. It's in you now. Static swelled. Beneath it, Ethan heard his own voice, warped and grinning. We'll find you. The desert swallowed Ethan's Jeep tracks, leaving no trace of whoever or whatever had taken it. He walked for hours under the starless sky, the static humming in his ears like a second pulse. By dawn, he reached a derelict gas station, its sign bleached by decades of sun. Welcome to Silver Peak, Popper 89. The town beyond was a skeleton, rusted cars, boarded windows, and a diner with a flickering open sign. Ethan's phone had died, but the static followed. It whispered through payphone receivers and crackled from abandoned radios. At the diner, he found a newspaper dated November 23, 1987, the day after Project Echo's termination. The headline, Local Man Found Dead, Unknown Frequency Blamed. The article detailed a farmer's death. Victim's body reportedly emitted radio static, organs rearranged into geometric patterns. A photo showed symbols carved into the man's barn door, the same spirals Ethan had seen in Facility 7. Behind the counter, a dusty cassette player whirred. Ethan pressed eject. The tape inside was labeled Facility 12, Transmission 47. The tape hissed. A woman's voice, sharp with urgency. Log date, November 30th, 1987. Dr. Lena Grant, Project Echo Oversight. Facility 7's destruction hasn't contained the frequency. It's spreading. We've traced anomalous activity to Silver Peak. Recommend immediate. Gunfire erupted. Glass shattered. Dr. Grant's voice dropped to a whisper. They're here. The hum, it rewires the mind. If you're hearing this, find Facility 12. Destroy the tape ended. Ethan pocketed it. The diner's lights dimmed. Outside, the static swelled, a low, resonant hum. A sheriff's cruiser idled at the town's edge. Ethan approached, hand on his knife. The driver's door hung open. Inside, the radio blared white noise. A clipboard lay on the seat. Missing persons, Silver Peak, 11/25/1987, Deputy Sam Reynolds, 11/27/1987, Dr. Lena Grant. Ethan froze. A shadow moved in the rearview mirror. A figure in a tattered deputy's uniform. No face. Just static where his head should be. You're not supposed to be here. It rasped. Sam's voice layered with the hum. Ethan bolted. The cruiser's engine roared to life, tires screeching. He ducked into an alley as the car slammed into a lamppost. The deputy crawled from the wreck, limbs snapping and reforming like broken radio waves. Join us, it gurgled, dragging itself toward him. The frequency needs a voice. Ethan sprinted to the town church, its steeple leaning like a broken bone. Inside, pews were overturned, hymnals open to pages scribbled with symbols. A trapdoor behind the altar led underground. The tunnel stank of rot and ozone. Ethan's flashlight revealed a bunker, smaller than Facility 7, but identical in design. Monitors lined the walls, showing static-laced footage of Silver Peak's residents. Families gathered around radios, their eyes glowing white. A child drawing spirals on the wall, humming. Dr. Grant strapped to a chair, screaming as static poured from her mouth. A terminal blinked. Facility 12, active. Ethan typed commands. Files unlocked. Project Echo, Phase 2. Frequency, 7.38 bridges. Dimensions. Subjects become transmitters, spreading the signal exponentially. Dr. Grant's notes. The hum isn't alien, it's ancient. A language predating humanity. It's using us to rebuild its world. Termination protocol. Overload all arrays simultaneously. Sacrifice required. A crash echoed above. The deputy's static-drenched voice boomed through vents. Found you. Ethan grabbed a flash drive labeled Array Schematics and fled deeper. Into the bunker. The core room housed a smaller version of Facility 7's transmitter. Wires snaked from its base to a chair stained with dried blood. Dr. Grant's journal lay open. They're making me broadcast. The hum, it's in my bones. If you're reading this, kill the array. Kill me. Ethan wired his flashlight battery to the terminal. The array sparked. No. Dr. Grant stood in the doorway, or what was left of her. Her skin glitched between flesh and static, one eye human, the other a swirling void. You'll doom us. All, she hissed, her voice a chorus of screams. The deputy oozed in behind her, limbs elongating. Ethan slammed the overload switch. The array exploded. Ethan woke in the desert. Facility 12's entrance collapsed. Dawn bled pink and orange, but the sky flickered, static rippling behind the clouds. His phone buzzed, miraculously alive. A text from an unknown number. They're in the towers. Find me attached. Coordinates to a military base 300 miles north. Ethan's reflection wavered in the phone's screen. Black veins curled beneath his skin. The hum whispered, "You're ours now." He started walking. The coordinates led Ethan to a military base carved into the side of a mountain. Razor wire coiled over crumbling fences, and watchtowers stood like skeletal sentinels, their searchlights shattered. A sign clung to the gates, its letters weathered. To Ghosts, Facility Omega, Project Echo Final Phase. The static in Ethan's veins hummed louder here, syncing with the base's pulse like a twisted lullaby. His reflection in a rain-puddled Jeep hood wavered. Black tendrils now curled up his neck, his eyes flecked with static. Sleep had become a memory. The frequency sang to him in waking nightmares, showing him visions. Skyscrapers dissolving into wild, fractal noise, faces melting into spirals, and her, Dr. Lena Grant, alive and screaming in the static. The base's main hangar yawned open, its steel doors bent inward as if punched by a giant. Inside, a transmitter loomed, its steel ribs crackling with arcs of blue-white energy. Wires thicker than Ethan's arms snaked into the floor, feeding a subterranean glow. Corpses in hazmat suits littered the ground, masks shattered, mouths frozen, in silent screams. A voice echoed from the catwalks above, metallic and layered with static. "You're right on time, Mr. Carter." A man in a military uniform descended, his insignia marking him as General Marcus Cole. His left eye was a milky void, static leaking from the socket like smoke. "We've been expecting you," he said, grinning with teeth too sharp and too many. The frequency's perfect host, the Cole led Ethan underground, past laboratories where horrors hung suspended in glass tanks. Human subjects fused to machinery, their spines elongated into antenna-like structures. A map of the continental U.S., dotted with red pins, each marking a facility echo site. A mural of the spiral from Silver Peak labeled the first language. Deeper still, the air thickened. The walls vibrated, plastered dust raining down as the static's hum crescendoed. The core pulsed below, a sphere of liquid static, its surface reflecting a fractured world of floating debris and screaming faces. Cole gestured to it, reverent. Project Echo wasn't about communication, it was excavation. We dug too deep and found them. Ethan's skin prickled. The ones in the static? Older than static, older than time. They're the reason. We have music, radio, Wi-Fi, all crude attempts to mimic their frequency. Their true language reshapes reality. Cole pressed a button. The core brightened, projecting holograms. Dr. Grant, alive and strapped to a chair, static pouring from her eyes as symbols burned into her skin. Facility 7's tower reassembling in the desert, larger, hungrier, its antennas clawing at a blood-red sky. Ethan's own face, fully consumed by black veins, leading an army of static-warped soldiers. "You're the bridge," Cole said. "With you, we'll speak their tongue, remake the world." Ethan gripped the knife in his pocket. "I didn't come to join." Cole laughed, static crackling in his throat. "You already did." Behind him, soldiers materialized from the walls, former Facility Omega staff, their bodies glitching between flesh and digital noise. The choice Ethan bolted. Cole's laughter chased him through twisting corridors. The core's glow guided him to a control room, its walls papered with schematics labeled "Frequency Disruptor, Theory Only." Dr. Grant's voice crackled from a terminal. "Ethan, overload the core, it's the only way." A live feed showed her trapped in the static dimension, a hellscape of floating debris, screaming faces, and a massive door covered in eyes. "Sacrifice required," she gasped. Ethan typed frantically. The disruptor schematics flashed. Energy source. Human nervous system. Cole burst in, static soldiers oozing through the door behind him. "Pathetic," he sneered. "You'd die to save a corpse?" Ethan stared at his infected hands. The veins pulsed, whispering promises of power. "Not just me." He jammed the knife into the terminal. The static storm. The core erupted. Liquid static flooded the base, dissolving soldiers, melting walls. Cole screamed as his body unraveled, flesh peeling back to reveal writhing static beneath. "You'll kill us all." "Yeah," Ethan said. "That's the point." He dragged Cole into the core's chamber. The general's screams merged with the frequency's shriek, a symphony of annihilation. Dr. Grant's voice cut through the chaos. "Now, Ethan." He plunged his hands into the core. The static burned. Memories tore through him. His first radio, a childhood gift, playing lullabies that now felt like warnings. Dr. Hayes's final moments in Facility 7, his eyes wide as static devoured him. Deputy, Sam, Dr. Grant, Ryan Mitchell, all trapped in the static, their faces pleading. "Let go," Grant whispered. Ethan did. The aftermath lightning split the sky. Facility Omega collapsed, swallowed by a vortex of static and debris. Ethan woke days later in a scorched field. the mountain reduced to rubble. His skin was clean. The hum gone. But the static lingered. In diners, strangers' eyes flickered with recognition. Payphones rang with no one there. His reflection sometimes shifted. A shadow with too many teeth grinning back. At a roadside motel, a package waited. Dr. Grant's journal, postmarked from a town that didn't exist. Inside, a note. They're not gone, just silent. Stay tuned. Ethan smiled. The coordinates in Dr. Grant's journal led Ethan to a coastal town not on any map, Haven's Rest. Salt-crusted signs declared it abandoned since 1987, but neon lights flickered in windows, casting fractured reflections on rain-slick streets. Static hummed through rusted speakers bolted to telephone poles, a low, resonant drone that vibrated in Ethan's molars. The air smelled of ozone and rotting seaweed, thick enough to coat his tongue. Above, the sky glowed faintly blue, like the static-laced screen of an old CRT TV left running in an empty room. Ethan paused outside a diner, his reflection warping in its grimy window. His eyes were fully black now, irises replaced by static that crackled like live wires. Veins of shadow curled up his neck, pulsing in time with the hum. He flipped open, the journal, its final entry seared into his mind. The first language isn't sound. It's silence, the space between frequencies, and it's hungry. Inside the diner, a jukebox played Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel. Slowed, warped, the king's croon stretched into a guttural growl. A woman sat at the counter, her back to him, hunched over a chipped coffee cup. "You're late," she said, turning. Dr. Lena Grant, or what was left of her. Her right eye remained sharp, hazel and human. The left was a void of static, tendrils of black smoke leaking down her cheek. "They're rebuilding the door," she said, tapping the journal. "And you're the final piece." Grant led him through the town, past boarded-up shops and rusted cars frozen mid-collision. The lighthouse loomed ahead, its beam slicing through the night, not with light, but with silence, a vacuum that sucked the sound from the air. Ethan's ears popped as they stepped inside. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent symbols, spirals that throbbed like veins, lidless eyes that tracked their movement, jagged teeth etched into the stone. The air vibrated, not with noise, but with absence. A silence so profound it clawed at Ethan's eardrums. Facility 712 Omega. They were tuning forks, Grant said, her voice fraying at the edges. She handed him a cassette tape labeled Transmission $1000. "Haven's Rest is the resonator. The door opens tonight." Ethan slid the tape into a dusty player. It hissed, then spoke, a sound that bypassed his ears and burrowed directly into his skull. Not words, not static, something older. "We existed before your stars. We will rewrite your flesh. Silence is our gift." Blood trickled from Ethan's nose. Grant's static eye wept oily black fluid. "They're not in the static," she said, wiping her face. "The static is in them, and they're coming through." Midnight. The lighthouse beam ignited, slicing the sky into jagged fractals. The ocean recoiled, waves pulling back to reveal a cavernous pit where the town cemetery had been. At its center stood a door, 10 feet tall, iron-bound, its surface studded with eyes that blinked in unison. Figures emerged from the dunes. Townsfolk long dead, their bodies rebuilt from static and sand. A child dragged a corroded teddy bear, its button eyes replaced with glowing spirals. At their head stood General Cole, his form a shimmering collage of broken TV screens, each shard reflecting a different screaming face. "The host arrives," Cole boomed, voices overlapping. Men, women, children all twisted into a single dissonant roar. The first language requires a tongue. Ethan's veins burned. The static surged, demanding he speak, to unleash the frequency coiled in his bones. Grant pressed a device into his hand, a handheld radio retrofitted with a syringe labeled neural disruptor. "Your nervous system is the key," she said, her static eye dissolving into smoke. "Your choice, open the door, or become the lock." The static army surged. Ethan jammed the syringe into his neck. The disruptor fired, its pulse tearing through him like a live wire. The world fractured. He saw the birth of the first language, a cosmic scream that tore through the void, birthing stars and static in its wake. Humanity's first words, apes huddled in caves, mimicking the frequency with crude grunts, dooming their descendants to hunger for it. Dr. Grant in the static dimension, not trapped but transformed, her body a bridge of light and noise. "Now, Ethan," her voice echoed, a beacon in the chaos. He faced the door. The eyes widened, pleading. "Silence," Ethan commanded. The door imploded. The static army disintegrated, sand and sparks raining down. Cole's screens shattered, his final scream a dial-tone screech. The lighthouse collapsed, stones crashing into the pit as the ocean roared back, swallowing Haven's Rest. Ethan woke on a beach, dawn bleeding pink and gold over the horizon. The neural disruptor lay in his grip, its screen cracked. His veins were clear. The hum, gone. But the silence, it pressed heavier than before. In his pocket, the radio crackled. "Thank you," Grant's voice said, frayed but alive. "But silence can't be killed. Only postponed." Months later, Ethan stood on a hillside overlooking a city that glittered like a circuit board. Skyscrapers pulsed with light, their glass facades reflecting a sky-tinged static gray. His phone buzzed. A news alert. Mysterious radio waves linked to global sleepwalking epidemic. He turned on the radio. Static whispered, softer now, almost melodic. "We learn. We adapt. We are patient." Ethan smiled, his eyes flickering black. "For a heartbeat, so am I," he said. He walked toward the city, the static humming in his shadow. Story 5, The Silent Pact. 5 recordings that broke the Vailp rain hammered the rental car's roof like 1,000 typewriter keys stuck on repeat. Lila Carter squinted through the windshield, the wipers barely keeping pace with the storm. The GPS had died an hour ago, but the coordinates were seared into her mind. 47.6 degree N, 122.3 degree W. A patch of wilderness in Washington's Olympic Peninsula where, according to the anonymous tip, her brother had vanished 3 months ago. The road twisted, deeper into the forest, pine branches clawing at the windows. Lila's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. She'd memorized the police report. No signs of struggle, no footprints. Just his empty Jeep, engine cold, radio tuned to dead air. But the anonymous letter changed everything. A single Polaroid slipped under her door. Her brother, Ben, standing in front of a concrete bunker, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. Scrawled on the back, "They're using him to open the door." The car lurched to a stop. The road ended abruptly at a chain link, fence choked by ivy. A sign hung crookedly. "No trespassing. U.S. government property." The U.S. had been spray painted over with Lila stepped out, mud sucking at her boots. The air smelled wrong, metallic, like old blood and burnt copper. Her brother's last voicemail played in her head, his voice trembling. "Lila, it's not a radio tower, it's a door, and they're using us to..." The call had cut off. The police found his Jeep abandoned near this fence, the seats stained with a substance the lab couldn't identify. Rust, they'd said, but Lila knew rust didn't glow faintly green under blacklight. She clipped the fence with bolt cutters, the metal screaming like a wounded animal. The forest beyond was unnervingly silent. No birds, no wind, just the relentless drum of rain. Undergrowth clawed at her jacket as she pushed forward, thorns snagging her sleeves. After 20 minutes, the trees thinned, revealing a concrete bunker half buried in the hillside. Its steel door hung open, rusted hinges creaking in the wind. Lila paused, flashlight beam slicing through the gloom. The bunker's entrance yawned like a mouth, exhaling air so cold it burned her lungs. She stepped inside. The walls were lined with peeling posters, Project Whisper, clearance level 5 required. Desks sprawled with yellowed files and coffee cups fossilized by mold. A bulletin board hung askew, pinned with a memo. "All personnel report to Sublevel B. Containment breach imminent." At the room's center sat a reel-to-reel recorder, dust-free, as if placed there moments ago. A single tape was threaded through. It labeled recording number 1, do not play. Lila pressed play. Log date, October 13th, 1989. Dr. Martin Voss, lead researcher. The voice was calm, academic, but beneath it, a tremor. Test subject 1A. Male, 32. Healthy. No prior psychological issues. Exposure to frequency X7 initiated at 0900 hours. A low hum filled the tape, vibrating Lila's teeth even through the recording. A man's voice, raw, terrified, cut through. "Make it stop. It's in my head. It's talking." "Describe the words," Dr. Voss ordered. Not words, pictures, a city, but wrong. Towers like bones, things moving in the sky. The hum intensified. The man screamed, a wet, guttural sound. "Terminate exposure," Voss barked. Silence. Then, a new voice. Deep, layered, impossible. "You opened the door. Now we walk." The tape snapped. Lila's hands shook. The bunker walls seemed to pulse, shadows stretching toward her flashlight beam. She rifled through the desk, finding a journal bound in cracked leather. Dr. Voss's entries. October 14, 1989. Subject 1A's body dissolved within hours. No remains. Frequency X7 is not sound. It's a key. Oct 20, 1989. They're in the walls. The team hears them. Whitaker tried to carve symbols into his arms. Security subdued him. He's gone now. Oct 31, 1989. The door is real. They're coming through. God help whoever finds this. A Polaroid fell from the journal. A man strapped to a chair, his skin covered in glowing symbols. His eyes were gone, replaced by static. Lila's flashlight flickered. Not from the tape. Above her, the ceiling speaker's grill trembled. She bolted for the door. It slammed shut. The speaker exploded in a shower of sparks. Something crawled out. A tangle of wires and flesh. Its face, a shifting collage of static and teeth. "You're late," it hissed, Dr. Voss's voice layered with her brother's. But the door's still open. Lila swung her flashlight. The thing laughed, dissolving into smoke that coiled around her ankles. Find the other tapes, it whispered from the walls, or he's ours forever. The door creaked open. Outside, the storm raged. On the ground, a fresh cassette gleamed. Recording number 2. The veil is thin here. The storm screamed as Lila stumbled out of the bunker, her boots sinking into mud that clung like tar. Rain lashed her face sharp and cold, but the cassette in her hand burned hotter than shame. Recording number 2. The veil is thin here. The labels. Block letters glinted under her flashlight, slick with rain. She glanced back at the bunker's open maw, half expecting the static-faced thing to slither out. Instead, the wind howled through its rusted hinges, a sound like laughter. Her rental car sat where she'd left it, drowned in shadows. The engine coughed to life, its feeble heat doing little to thaw the dread in her bones. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the dashboard tape player. Ben's voice echoed in her memory. It's a door, and they're using us to... The tape clicked into place. Static fizzed, then a voice, dry and fractured, crawled from the speakers. Log date, October 17th, 1989. Dr. Martin Voss. Lila stiffened. This wasn't the measured academic from the first recording. Voss sounded ruined, his words slurred as if his tongue had grown too heavy. Test subject 2B. Female 28, former linguist. Exposure to frequency X7 initiated at 1400 hours. She's different, resistant. Claims the voices are teaching her a language. She drew symbols. A wet thud interrupted him. Papers rustled. Then a woman's voice, low and resonant, chanted in guttural syllables that made Lila's skull ache. The language was jagged, alien, each consonant a serrated edge. "Cease," Voss barked. "What are you saying?" The woman laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "They're coming, through the cracks. You can't seal them all." The hum surged, deeper than the first tape, vibrating the steering wheel, the gear shift, Lila's fillings. She gripped the door handle as the car speakers screamed, the woman's voice twisting into a metallic shriek. "Door must open. The feast begins." The tape player exploded in a shower of sparks. Lila reeled back, shielding her face. The smell of burnt plastic and ozone choked the air. When she looked up, the dashboard screen was dead, but etched into its cracked surface were 3 glowing symbols: a square, a twisted star, a spiral like an atom. They pulsed once, then faded. The bunker's entrance gaped, darkness pooling like oil. Lila's flashlight beam trembled as she stepped back inside. The air had thickened, humid and sweetly rotten like flowers left to decay in a sealed room. The walls were different. Where before they'd been lined with peeling posters and dust, now they bled. Glowing green fluid seeped from cracks in the concrete, snaking downward in phosphorescent veins. The symbols from the tape repeated in the sludge, shimmering like wet ink. "Find the other tapes," the static thing had hissed, "or he's ours forever." Dr. Voss's journal had mentioned a sub-level. Lila found the stairwell behind a collapsed filing cabinet, its metal door pried open by something with claws. The steps spiraled into blackness. Her boots rang against rusted metal. 30 steps down, the temperature plummeted. Her breath fogged the air, and the walls here were worse, covered in handprints. Not human. 4 fingers, too long, the palms smeared with the same glowing residue. At the bottom, a hallway stretched into shadow, lined with cells. The first cell's glass wall was shattered. Inside, a steel chair sat bolted to the floor, its restraints snapped. Dark stains crusted the seat. The second cell held a nightmare. A humanoid shape fused to its chair, limbs elongated into jointless stalks, fingers branching into twig-like protrusions. Its head lolled back, mouth stretched wide around. A silent scream, where its eyes should have been, static flickered, a grainy, endless loop of noise. Project Whisper, hybridization. Trial 4A, read a placard on the door. Result, partial assimilation. Termination recommended. Lila's stomach turned. She moved faster, passing cells filled with horrors. A torso blooming with wire-like tendrils. A figure whose skin had crystallized into jagged shards. Another whose face had melted into a featureless void. The fifth cell stopped her cold. Test subject 2B. The woman from the tape sat upright, her posture unnervingly precise. Her skin was a latticework of glowing symbols, pulsing in time with Lila's heartbeat. The linguist's head snapped toward her, eyes wide and blank. Pure static. Lila. Her brother's voice. The woman's jaw unhinged, dropping impossibly low. Static poured out, a cascade of black and white noise that coalesced into a familiar silhouette. Ben, or something wearing. His face, his edges wavered, a poorly tuned television. His eyes were gone, replaced by swirling static, tendrils of it snaking down his cheeks like tears. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice layered with the hum. "But now you'll help me finish it." Lila fled, her pulse roaring, in her ears. At the hall's end, a steel door marked "Control" hung ajar. She slammed it shut behind her, plunging the room into darkness save for the flicker of dying monitors. The control panels were gutted, wires spilling like intestines. A bulletin board listed names under termination schedule. Subject 1A, dissolution. Subject 2B, assimilation. Subject 5D. Redacted, a file folder lay splayed on a desk, its contents spilled. Grainy photos of Ben in a lab coat, standing beside Dr. Voss. In one, he smiled, holding a clipboard. In another, he stared at the camera, eyes hollow, symbols creeping up his neck. Subject 5D, Benjamin Carter. Compatibility, 98.7%. Notes, volunteer, remarkable resilience. Proceeding to stage 3. Volunteer. Lila's knees buckled. She gripped the desk, the truth crashing over her. Ben's late-night shifts. His frantic calls. "They're using us to open the door," he'd whispered. She hadn't listened. A thud shook the door. The handle rattled. "Lila." Ben's voice, warped and wet. "You left me here, now you'll take my place." She ran, the hum swelling to a deafening roar. The hallway twisted, walls curving inward until she burst into a cavernous chamber. At its center stood the door, 20 feet tall, wrought from blackened metal studded with bolts the size of fists. Symbols covered its surface, some glowing, others dead and cracked. The air around it shimmered as if reality itself were fraying. Ben stood before it, his back to her. "You found me," he said, turning. His lab coat hung in tatters. The symbols now covered his entire body, throbbing like infected veins. Static churned in his eye sockets, tendrils lashing like angry serpents. "They showed me what's behind the door," he said, smiling with a mouthful of needles. "You'll love it, Lila. It's so much quieter there." She lunged with her knife. The blade passed through him, scattering static like smoke. "You'll need this," he laughed, dissolving. A cassette clattered to the floor. Recording under 3. The other side outside, the storm still raged, but beneath it Lila heard a new sound, a low grinding creak as the door's bolts began to turn. The door opened with a sound that split the world. Lila stood at the threshold, her hands trembling like wounded birds. What lay beyond wasn't darkness or void, but a landscape of static, a dead TV screen stretched into horizons. Towers of petrified flesh rose from the ground, their surfaces pockmarked with pulsing veins. The sky churned black, peeling like burnt skin, and the air reeked of molten copper. Every step Lila took left glowing footprints, phosphorus bright, against the ashen ground. Her brother's voice cut through the hum. Finally, I've been waiting. She turned. Ben stood 10 feet away, his body warped. The symbols had spread, crawling up his neck and jaw like luminous parasites. His left arm ended in a tangle of wires and bone, twitching as if alive. But his eyes, those were still Ben's. Brown, warm, pleading. It's not too late, he said, taking a step forward. The ground hissed where he walked. Play the third tape. It'll show you how to close the door, how to save me. The cassette weighed heavy in her pocket. Recording them under 3, the other side. She clutched it, her nails biting into the plastic. Why? Should I trust you? She whispered. Ben's face flickered. For a heartbeat, static consumed him, a writhing mass of teeth and antennae, before snapping back. Because I'm still here, he said, tapping his chest. Underneath, I'm still here. They walked. The static realm shifted as they moved, geometries folding and unfolding like origami in reverse. A jagged spire of obsidian loomed ahead, its surface crawling with symbols. The air vibrated with the hum, louder now, as if the structure itself were a speaker. Project Whisper's control hub, Ben said, his voice tinged with bitterness. Where they broadcast frequency X7 into our world. Where they tuned us. The tower's entrance yawned, its archway lined with teeth-like stalactites. Inside, the walls were alive, faces pressed against the black glass, dozens of them, mouths stretched in silent screams. Lila recognized test subject 2B, her glowing symbols now fused with the obsidian. They're still connected, Ben said. The door doesn't just open a path, it merges. At the tower's heart hung a massive reel-to-reel recorder, its tape spinning endlessly. A frequency generator hummed beside it, dials labeled X7 and Veil Integrity. The floor was littered with Polaroids. Ben and Dr. Voss, their faces increasingly distorted, standing before the machine. Play the tape here, Ben urged. It'll reverse the signal, collapse the door. Lila slotted the cassette into a rusted player bolted to the wall. Static hissed. Then a voice Lila hadn't expected. Her own. Log date, November 1st, 1989. Dr. Martin Voss. But it wasn't Voss. It was Ben, speaking in a monotone, his words spliced with garbled noise. Final entry. The door is open. They're here, in the walls, in the air, in us. Frequency X7 isn't a key, it's a bridge, a feeding tube. They're not behind. They're the door, and we've let them in. Lila, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry, I thought I could control it, I thought I could. A wet crunch. The tape devolved into screams. Ben's, Voss's, a chorus of others. Over it all, the layered voice boomed. You are the door now. The recording ended. Lila whirled to face Ben. You lied. This tape doesn't close anything. His face began to unravel, static bleeding from his eyes. No, he said, reaching for her. But it opens everything. The tower shook. The reel-to-reel recorder spun faster, spewing tape like entrails. The faces in the walls wailed, their mouths stretching wider, wider. Ben grabbed Lila's wrist, his fingers dissolving into wires. They need a conductor. Someone compatible. He dragged her toward the generator where a headset glowed with malevolent light. You're 99.9%, Lila. Higher than me. Higher than anyone. She fought, but his strength was inhuman. The headset clamped over her ears. The hum became a roar. Visions exploded behind her eyes. A city of flesh. Towers breathing. 1,000,000. Doors opening across the world, static pouring out. Ben, whole again, smiling as he walked into the light. Just let go, his voice whispered tender. It doesn't hurt, not after a while. The generator's dial surged. Veil integrity, 0%. Lila screamed and ripped off the headset. The tower imploded. Lila fell through static, through time, through memories that weren't hers. Ben signing the Project Whisper consent form. Voss injecting him with a glowing serum. The moment the door first opened, a static tendril caressing Ben's cheek. She landed hard in the bunker's control room, the real world snapping back. The door still stood, its symbols dimming. Ben's silhouette flickered beside it, fraying at the edges. You could have saved me, he whispered. You weren't there to save, she said, voice breaking. Just the ghost they left behind. His smile was sorrow and static. Find recording number 4, it's in the... He vanished. The door shuddered. From its cracks seeped a familiar green glow, and a single cassette slick with otherworldly fluid, recording. Or, the first conductor outside, the storm had stopped. The sky burned blood red. Somewhere 1,000,000 televisions tuned to dead channels. The sky wasn't red anymore. It wasn't anything. Lila stood in the bunker's parking lot, staring at the void where the horizon should have been. The trees, the road, the distant mountains, all erased, replaced by a static haze that buzzed like a wasp's nest. The cassette in her hand, recording the for 4. The first conductor felt alive. It squirmed against her palm, its plastic shell warm and vaguely fleshy. Ben's final words echoed. Find recording number 4. It's in the... In the what? She'd scoured the bunker twice. Nothing. But the door still stood behind her, its symbols flickering weakly. The cracks in its surface wept that same green glow, and the hum. The hum had changed. It wasn't a sound anymore. It was a presence, coiled in her lungs, nesting in the hollows of her bones. She slid into the rental car, now dusted with ash that wasn't ash. The dashboard tape player hung broken from her last encounter, but the cassette seemed to pulse, demanding to be heard. Fine, she muttered. Let's finish this. She pressed play. A child's laughter spilled from the speakers. Not innocent. Wrong. Giggles spliced with static, rising in pitch until it became a scream. Then a voice, soft, maternal, and utterly alien. Log date, September 12th, 1947. Dr. Eleanor Voss. Voss, Martin's ancestor. Subject 0, female, age 6. Recovered from crash site in Roswell, New Mexico. Initial assessment suggests non-terrestrial biology, remarkably humanoid. Responds to the name Lily. A recording of a child's voice cut in, singing Ring Around the Rosie in perfect English. Halfway through, the melody warped, the lyrics shifting into guttural syllables. Subject 0 demonstrates ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields. Eleanor continued. At 1500 hours, she reconfigured a Grundig radio into a transmitter. Claims she's calling home. A burst of static. Screams, German phrases, Hilfe, Schließen Sie es, overlapping. Then, Eleanor's voice, trembling. The test chamber is compromised. Symbols appearing on walls. Staff reporting hallucinations. Private Jenkins attacked Corporal Reed, insisting Reed's face was made of worms. Lily laughs through it all. She says, the child interrupted, her voice suddenly aged, graveled. You'll make a good door, Mommy. The tape ended. Lila sat frozen. Outside, the static void crept closer, dissolving the parking lot's edge. Roswell, she whispered. Project Whisper didn't study the door. It bred it. The bunker's lights flickered as she descended. The door's glow painted the hall's septic green, and the air tasted of rust. In the control room, monitors showed live feeds of cities worldwide. Tokyo, Paris, Nairobi, each with a massive door materializing downtown, static bleeding into streets. But the file she needed wasn't here. It's in the... She sprinted to the stairwell, down to the sublevel with its cells. Test Subject 2B's cell was empty now, the glass shattered inward. Lila's flashlight caught something etched into the floor. Sublevel C, authorized personnel only, an arrow pointed to the wall. No door, just concrete. She pressed her palm to it. The symbols on her skin, the ones she'd unknowingly carried since the tower, flared. The wall dissolved into static, revealing a narrow staircase. At the bottom, a nursery. Pink wallpaper peeled under mold. A crib sat center room, its bars twisted. Dolls with static faces littered the floor. And on a rocking chair, a skeleton in a 1940s lab coat, its fingers clutching a journal. Eleanor Voss's last entry. They're taking Lily away. The generals say she's a threat. But she's my daughter, my miracle. Last night, she kissed my cheek and said, "Don't worry, Mommy. We'll play again soon." I've hidden the truth in the walls. If you're reading this, you're already one of her doors. I'm sorry. Burn it all. Under the crib, a reel-to-reel recorder. Lila threaded the tape. A child's voice. "Hi, Lila." Lila staggered. The static void outside roared, chewing, through the bunker's roof. "I've been watching you," Lily said, giggling. "Ben was fun, but you're special. Your head's so quiet, perfect for my song." "Where's Ben?" Lila demanded. "Gone. But you can see him." The tape, word, "Just put on the pretty crown." A panel slid open in the nursery wall. Inside, a circlet of black metal pulsed with the same symbols that killed Ben. "Put it on," Lily crooned. "You'll be my forever door. We'll peel the sky open. Let all my friends in." Lila reached for the crown, then smashed the reel-to-reel. With a fire extinguisher, the void screamed. Lila ran, the crown clutched like a grenade. The nursery collapsed behind her, the static dissolving walls, floors, time. She reached the door as the bunker crumbled, its frame cracking. "Lila!" Ben's voice. Real this time. He flickered in the door's glow, barely human, a shadow, with static tears. "The crown," he gasped. "It's a key. Crush it and..." "Liar," Lily hissed through the door. "He's mine. You're mine. All my doors are mine." Lila looked at the crown, at Ben, at the world unraveling. then slid the crown onto her head. The symbols moved, burrowing into her skull. Visions flooded her. Lily, not alien but other, older than stars. 1,000 worlds consumed, each door a note in her song. Eleanor, Voss begging as her daughter peeled her mind open. But Lila's head was quiet, immune. "No," Lily wailed. "You're supposed to—" "I'm not your door," Lila said. "I'm your cage." She tore the crown apart. The door exploded. They found her 3 days later wandering Highway 101. The bunker, a crater, the doors worldwide, gone. Ben, no trace. In her pocket, a final cassette labeled Recording Number 5, Lila. She never played it, but sometimes in the static between radio stations she hears a child crying and smiles, and just like that the stories end. But the dark, it's just getting started. Smash subscribe, slam that bell, or the next nightmare might crawl into your feed. And stay. Tell us, when Lila smiled at the end, you think she's free, or is she theirs now? Drop your truth below. Share this with someone who thinks they're safe. They're not. Next time, a 911 call from a town that vanished in '83. Screams and a voice asking, "Can I come in?" This is American. Pulse and Paranormal. Sleep tight if you can.